Hello everyone, if you are here, it means you love Dr. Myles Munroe. Our job here is to share simple messages from him to the world. Subscribe if you would like to watch his life-changing messages. Dr. Myles Munroe explains that many chase money without thinking about God, forgetting that God is money. God could any time of the day command you to give the rest of the time away. So tithing and offering is not about money. It's about management. He explains. God says, put aside 10% of everything for my purposes. 100% of everything belongs to God. He uses the following analogy. So God blesses you with a paycheck of $1,000. So then, why would God, if He owns all 1,000, wants you to put aside 10%? If all of a sudden belongs to Him? Why? Because it's not about the money. It's about your ability to put it aside. Your will, your control, your discipline to put it aside. He's after your discipline. Says Myles Munroe. He explains further that if you can manage the 10% properly, then He is happy to trust you with the 90% that is left. But because you've been unfaithful in the 10%, you keep losing the 90%, so you end up with no percent. That's why you're broke. This is what tithing does to you. Number 1, accountability. If you keep paying your tithe, you automatically first become accountable. The second is discipline. For you to put that aside every single time requires discipline. Honesty is for you to be a tither. That means no one's watching except God. You can lie to everybody else, but God knows if you pay 10%, that makes you honest, and managers must be honest. The fourth word? Diligence. It means that you work at it constantly to make sure you don't steal that 10%. That's what the manager's supposed to do. Says Myles Munroe. The next thing is faithfulness. It takes faithfulness to tithe. The next is trustworthiness. For you to manage time, God got to trust you every time. He also explains that Jesus showed top-class management when He had 5,000 people in the field and they were all hungry, as recorded in the book of Matthew 6 verse 40, which says, "So they sat down in groups of hundreds and fifties." This passage shows exemplary administration and organization. First, Jesus took the 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish, and looking up to God who provides, He thanked God. That is to say, the Father owns it. He broke it. Then He gave them to His disciples and they gave it to the people. He recounts Matthew 6. Christ did not end at that. He says further. He asked the disciples to pick every crumb. That is management. The preacher carries on to say, imagine this. 12,000 people in an open field breaking bread and pieces of fish. How in the world are you going to find pieces of bread, crumbs and pieces of fish, bone and stuff in the grass? Yet He said, pick up every crumb and bring it to me. Most of our countries are built on the culture of waste, and the practice is also in the church. That ain't funny. He made them pick up the crumbs. It was not the crumbs that were important. It was the lesson He was teaching. You don't waste the crumb. Dr. Myles Munroe explains how, with the principle of management, he and his team were able to shoot a television program with just one camera. They shot images at various angles with one camera, and in less than 10 years, the program became a great success, and people who visited couldn't believe their programs were shot with such limited resources. Thanks to good management. This video is a recap of Dr. Myles Munroe's sermon on financial success. In his sermon on financial success, Myles Munroe states that money is easy to get. So if it keeps moving away from you, it is telling you something you can't manage. He says. He outlines biblical scriptural passages which point to the fact that God does not encourage waste. He states that most of us don't manage the resources we have appropriately. He states further that the reason why God created tithing has nothing to do with giving God money. In his words, he says, tithing has nothing to do with giving God money. God doesn't need anything from you. You can't even give God anything. Everything on earth already belongs to God. He doesn't need anything from us. So when God sets something up, it's not because He needs it. Tithing and offering is God's management training program for us, mankind. According to Myles Munroe, God does not need a penny from us. He states further that the problem is many only think of tithe as money. He explains this by saying, if you get 10 pair of shoes, one of them isn't yours. If you get 10 dresses, one of them is not yours. If you bought 10 oranges, one of them is not yours. If you got 24 hours in a day, 2 hours and 40 minutes doesn't belong to you. So you shouldn't say, I've got no time to pray, because you got 200 hours and 40 minutes that don't belong to you. The preacher explains that you steal God's time when you don't use 2 hours and 40 minutes for God's purposes each day. He states that a lot of people spend 2 to 8 hours watching cable television, and can't give God 2 hours and 40 minutes of the time which rightly belongs to Him.